lights go out, the stories begin. Night stories. Your nightmares become real.
I was 16 when I first stumbled into the truth about my parents, a truth so vile it clawed at my sanity and left me hollow, like a husk discarded by something that feasts on innocence. It began on a restless night, the kind where sleep feels like a distant promise, and the hum of the old desktop in my room was the only sound anchoring me to reality. My parents were out, again, leaving me alone in our crumbling suburban house, the kind with peeling paint and a basement that always smelled faintly of damp earth and something metallic I could never place. They'd told me they were at a late-night church group, a flimsy excuse I'd stopped questioning years ago. But that night, boredom and a creeping curiosity led me to their locked office, a room I'd been forbidden to enter since I was old enough to understand the word no. The door was heavy, oak, with a brass knob that felt cold and unyielding under my palm. I'd found the key months earlier, hidden in a rusted coffee can in the garage, and I'd kept it in my sock drawer, waiting for a moment like this. The lock clicked with a soft, final sound, and the door creaked open, revealing a room that felt wrong, like stepping into a stranger's skin. The air was thick, stale, with a faint tang of something sour. A single bulb flickered overhead, casting jagged shadows across a desk cluttered with monitors, cables, and a tangle of USB drives. The walls were bare except for a single framed photo of me as a toddler, smiling, oblivious, hanging crookedly above the desk. It felt like a mockery. I sat in the creaky office chair, my heart thudding against my ribs, and powered on the main computer. The screen flickered to life, bathing the room in a sickly blue glow. No password, which struck me as odd. My parents were paranoid about everything else. The desktop was sparse, just a few folders labeled with numbers and dates. I clicked one at random, and a video player opened. My stomach twisted before the footage even started, some primal instinct screaming at me to shut it off, to leave, to burn the key and pretend I'd never been here. But I didn't. I couldn't. The video began with a static shot of a concrete room lit by a single red bulb that pulsed like a dying heart. The walls were stained, streaked with dark smears that could have been rust or something worse. In the center was a metal chair, bolted to the floor, and strapped to it was a man. His face was obscured by a burlap sack, but his body told a story of terror. His chest heaved, his wrists bled where the restraints bit into his skin, and his bare feet twitched against the cold floor. The audio was muffled, but I could hear his whimpers, soft and broken, like a child's. Then a figure stepped into frame. They wore a black jumpsuit and a featureless white mask, the kind that makes your skin crawl because it's too smooth, too empty. In their hand was a tool, a long, thin blade, almost surgical, glinting under the red light. I should have stopped it there. I should have run. But my body was frozen, my eyes glued to the screen as the figure approached the man. The blade moved with precision, slicing into the man's arm, slow and deliberate, peeling back skin like it was paper. Blood welled up, thick and dark, pooling on the floor. The man's screams were raw, animalistic, tearing through the speakers and into my skull. The figure didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, just kept cutting, methodical, like they were carving a roast. I wanted to vomit, but my body wouldn't move, wouldn't let me look away. The video ended abruptly, the screen going black, but the screams echoed in my head, looping, relentless. I clicked out of the folder, my hands shaking so badly I could barely control the mouse. I opened another, then another, each one worse than the last. Rooms bathed in red light, people, men, women, young, old, tied to chairs, tables, or just the floor, their bodies subjected to horrors I can't unsee. One video showed a woman, her eyes wide with terror, as a masked figure used pliers to pull her teeth, one by one, her screams turning to gurgles as blood filled her mouth. Another showed a man having his fingers broken, each snap accompanied by a sickening crunch that made my own hands ache. The worst was a young girl, no older than me, her face unmasked, her eyes pleading with the camera as if she knew someone was watching. The figure in that video used a blowtorch, and I can still hear the way her skin hissed and crackled, the way her screams turned to silence when she passed out. I don't know how long I sat there, clicking through the folders, each one a new descent into hell, hours maybe. My eyes burned, my throat was dry, and my heart felt like it was trying to claw its way out of my chest. But the worst came when I found a folder labeled Live. It was streaming, real time, and the timestamp showed it had started 20 minutes ago. I clicked it, and there was the red room again. The same concrete walls, the same chair. This time the victim was a boy, maybe 18, his face bruised and swollen, one eye nearly shut. He was sobbing, begging, his voice hoarse. And then I saw them, my parents. They weren't wearing masks. My mother, with her neatly tied bun and pearl earrings, stood to the side, adjusting a camera tripod with the same calm precision she used when setting the dinner table. My father, his glasses reflecting the red light, held a hammer, his face expressionless, like he was about to fix a fence post. The boy saw them, saw the hammer, and his pleas turned to shrieks, incoherent, desperate. My father raised the hammer, and I slammed the laptop shut, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I stumbled out of the chair, tripping over cables, and vomited onto the floor, the acidic burn in my throat grounding me in a reality I didn't want to face. They weren't at church. They were never at church. They were here, or somewhere like it, doing this. My parents, the ones who tucked me in as a child, who made pancakes on Sundays, who told me to say my prayers before bed, they were monsters. The kind that didn't just haunt nightmares, but created them, sold them, streamed them to faceless viewers on the dark web who paid to watch people suffer. I don't remember leaving the office, but I found myself in my room, curled up on the floor, the key still clutched in my hand. The house was silent, but it felt alive, like the walls were watching me, judging me for what I'd seen. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the red room, the blood, the masks, my parents' faces. I kept the key under my pillow, a cold reminder that what I'd seen was real, that I couldn't pretend it away. The next morning they came home. I heard the front door open, their voices bright and normal, like they'd just been to a potluck. My mother called me down for breakfast, her tone warm, but all I could see was her adjusting that tripod, her hands steady as screams filled the air. My father asked if I'd done my homework, and I pictured the hammer, the way it gleamed before it fell. I mumbled something and stayed in my room, claiming I was sick. They didn't push, didn't suspect. They never did. To them, I was still their obedient daughter, the one who didn't ask questions. But I did ask questions, just not out loud. How long had they been doing this? How many people had they hurt, killed? And why? Money? Power? Or something darker, something that made them enjoy it? I started noticing things I'd ignored before. The way they'd whisper to each other late at night. The way they'd lock the office door even when they were just paying bills. The way my mother's eyes would go cold when she thought no one was watching. I started checking their schedules, their excuses, piecing together the nights they were out with the dates on those videos. It matched too perfectly. I didn't go back to the office for a week, too afraid of what else I'd find, but the need to know grew like a cancer. I had to understand, had to see if there was a way to stop it, to save whoever was next. So one night when they left again, I went back. The computer was still there, still unlocked, like they were taunting me. I found a new folder, freshly uploaded, and opened it. The video was from 2 nights ago. Another red room, another chair, another victim, a man this time older, his face gaunt. But what stopped my heart was the background. Behind the chair, barely visible in the red light, was a shelf. And on that shelf was the same framed photo of me from the office, smiling, oblivious. They were doing this in our basement. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut, stealing my breath and leaving me dizzy. Our basement. The damp, metallic smell I'd always dismissed as old pipes or mildew. It wasn't. It was blood, fear, death. The red room wasn't some distant horror show. It was under my feet, in the house where I'd grown up, where I'd played hide-and-seek as a kid, where I'd eaten cereal at the kitchen table while my parents smiled and asked about my day. My home was a slaughterhouse, and I'd been living above it blind for years. I stumbled out of the office, my legs shaky, the key still burning a hole in my palm. The hallway felt too narrow, the walls pressing in, like the house itself was trying to suffocate me. I stood at the top of the basement stairs, the door at the bottom a black void in the dim light. I'd never liked the basement. Too cold, too dark, too many shadows that seemed to move when you weren't looking. Now I knew why. My hand hovered over the doorknob, trembling, but I couldn't bring myself to turn it. What if they were down there now? What if the red light was on, the camera rolling, someone screaming? Or worse, what if I opened the door and found nothing, just an empty basement, and I'd have to live with the doubt, wondering if I'd imagined it all? I backed away, my heart hammering so loud I was sure it would wake the neighbors. I locked myself in my room, shoved a chair under the handle, and sat on the bed staring at the floorboards. Every creak of the house felt like a threat, every distant car engine a warning that they were coming back. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The images from the videos looped in my head, the blades slicing flesh, the teeth clattering into a metal tray, the girl's skin blistering under the blowtorch. And now, the photo. My photo. A piece of me in their sick stage, like I was part of it, like they wanted me to be. When morning came, I heard my parents moving around downstairs, their voices carrying that same infuriating normalcy. My mother was humming, actually humming, while she made coffee. My father was reading the paper, the pages rustling like nothing had changed. I stayed in my room, pretending to sleep, but I was listening, cataloging every sound, every word. They didn't mention the basement, the office, or their church group. They talked about the weather, the grocery list, whether I'd need a ride to school. It was so mundane it made my skin crawl. How could they do this? How could they carve people apart at night and then butter toast in the morning? I started watching them closer, looking for cracks in their facade. My mother's hands, always so clean and manicured, now seemed sinister, like they were hiding blood under the nails. My father's glasses, always slightly crooked, caught the light in a way that made his eyes look empty, like the masks in the videos. I stopped eating with them, claiming I wasn't hungry, because the thought of swallowing food they'd touched made my stomach churn. I started sneaking into the office whenever they were gone, which was often. 3, sometimes 4 nights a week. Each time I found new videos, new horrors. A man with his eyelids cut off, staring blankly as blood ran down his face. A woman whose fingers were severed one by one, her screams fading into whimpers as she went into shock. Each video was worse, more creative, like they were perfecting their craft, feeding an audience that craved escalation. But it wasn't just the videos. I found other things. Chat logs, encrypted files, payment records. They were using some kind of dark web platform, a marketplace where people bid on shows. The amounts were staggering, thousands, tens of thousands for a single session. The chats were worse. Usernames like Bloodfiend and Pain Collector discussed the videos like they were reviewing a movie, critiquing the camera angles, the lighting, the performance. One user, Red Watcher, wrote, "Loved the kid last time. More of that." My stomach lurched. The girl with the blowtorch. They wanted more like her. I started to notice patterns. The victims weren't random. They were people no one would miss. Homeless drifters, runaways, people with no family, no paper trail. My parents must have been good at finding them, luring them, because no one ever came looking. I remembered a man who'd come to our door a year ago, dirty and shivering, asking for food. My mother had given him a sandwich and sent him away, but now I wondered if he'd ended up in the basement, his screams muffled by concrete walls. The thought made me sick, but I couldn't stop digging. I needed to know how deep this went, how far they'd fallen. One night, I found a live stream scheduled for the next evening. The description was brief. Special request, young male, custom order. The bid was higher than any I'd seen, $50,000. I didn't sleep that night, just sat there staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't go to the police, not yet. What proof did I have? Videos on a computer I wasn't supposed to access? They'd think I was crazy, or worse, my parents would find out I knew. I needed something concrete, something undeniable. I needed to see the basement. The next night I waited until they left, their car pulling out of the driveway at exactly 9 p.m. I grabbed a flashlight, the key, and a kitchen knife, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. The basement door felt heavier than before, like it was resisting me. The air grew colder as I descended, the smell of damp earth and metal growing stronger with each step. My flashlight beam danced across the walls, revealing cracked concrete and cobwebs. At the bottom, I found a second door, one I'd never noticed before, hidden behind a stack of old boxes. It was steel, heavy, with a padlock that looked new. My key didn't fit, but I could hear something behind it, a faint hum like machinery, and something else, something wet and rhythmic, like breathing. I pressed my ear to the door, my heart pounding so loud I was sure it would drown out everything else. The breathing stopped, and for a moment, There was nothing but silence. Then, a voice. Low, muffled, but unmistakable. "Help!" It was weak, barely a whisper, but it hit me like a scream. Someone was alive in there, trapped, waiting for the red light to come on. I wanted to break the door down, to save them, but I had no way to open it, no tools, no strength. I ran back upstairs, my legs burning, and locked myself in my room, the knife still clutched in my hand. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't call the police without evidence, but I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I started planning. Small things at first. I hid a USB drive with copies of the videos, buried it in the backyard under a loose brick. I memorized the chat logs, the usernames, the payment addresses. I even tried hacking into the dark web platform, but it was too secure, too far beyond my skills. All I could do was watch, wait, and pray I'd find a way to stop them before they hurt someone else. But they were watching me too. I didn't realize it at first, but little things started to feel off. My mother's smiles were too sharp, her questions too pointed. "What were you doing last night, sweetie? You looked tired." My father started locking the office door again, something he hadn't done in years. Once I caught him standing in my doorway, just staring at me while I pretended to sleep. I don't know how they knew, but they did. They knew I was digging, and it was only a matter of time before they figured out how much I'd seen. The night of the special request came, and I couldn't stay away. I waited until they were gone, then went back to the office, my hands steadier now, fueled by a mix of fear and rage. The live stream was already running. The boy was in the chair, his face bruised, his eyes wide with terror. My parents were there, unmasked, their faces calm and professional. My mother held a syringe, my father a saw. The boy was begging, his voice cracking, but they didn't even look at him, just adjusted the camera like he was a prop. I wanted to scream, to smash the computer, but I forced myself to watch, to record every second on my phone. This was my proof, my weapon. Then my mother looked at the camera, straight into it, and smiled. Not at the audience, not at the boy, at me. She knew I was watching. The screen went black, and I heard the front door open downstairs. The sound of the front door opening was like a gunshot in the silence of the house. My heart lurched, and the phone slipped from my trembling hands, clattering onto the desk. My mother's smile lingered in my mind, that cold, knowing curve of her lips, as if she'd reached through the screen and wrapped her fingers around my throat. I scrambled to shut down the computer, my fingers fumbling over the keyboard, the hum of the machine suddenly too loud, too accusing. Footsteps echoed from downstairs, slow and deliberate, each one a hammer strike against my nerves. They were back early, too early. The live stream had only been running for 15 minutes. Had they known I was watching the whole time? Had they set me up? I grabbed my phone and the knife I'd kept from the kitchen, my breath coming in shallow gasps. The office felt like a trap, the walls too close, the air too thick. I slipped out, closing the door behind me as softly as I could, though the click of the latch felt deafening. The hallway was dark, the faint glow from the kitchen light spilling up the stairs. I heard my father's voice, low and calm, saying something about checking upstairs. My mother's reply was softer, but I caught the word careful. My stomach twisted. They weren't talking about groceries or church. They were talking about me. I darted into my room, locking the door and shoving the chair under the handle again, though I knew it wouldn't hold them for long. My mind raced, trying to piece together a plan. The USB drive was still buried in the backyard. My insurance, my proof. But it wouldn't help me now. The knife felt useless in my hand, a child's toy against the monsters I'd seen in those videos. I crouched by the bed, clutching the phone, the video still saved in its memory. I could upload it, send it to someone, anyone. But who? The police? A friend? I didn't trust anyone, not anymore. The world felt like it had split open, and I was falling into the crack. The footsteps were on the stairs now, heavy and unhurried. I could picture my father's measured stride, the way his glasses would catch the light as he tilted his head, listening. My mother would be behind him, her pearl earrings glinting, her hands steady as they'd been when she held that syringe. I pressed myself against the wall, the knife slick with sweat in my grip. The doorknob rattled, just once, then stopped. Silence. It was worse than the footsteps, worse than the screams from the videos. It was the silence of predators waiting for their prey to make a mistake. "Sweetie?" My mother's voice, soft and syrupy, cut through the quiet like a blade. "Are you awake? We need to talk." My blood ran cold. She sounded so normal, so concerned, but I could hear the edge beneath it, the same edge I'd seen in her eyes when she looked into the camera. I didn't answer, didn't breathe. The doorknob rattled again, harder this time, and I heard my father mutter something I couldn't make out. Then, a sound that made my heart stop, a key turning in the lock. I don't know how they had a key to my room. I'd never seen one, never thought to look for one. The door creaked open, the chair scraping uselessly across the floor. My father stepped in first, his silhouette filling the doorway, his glasses reflecting the moonlight from my window. My mother was behind him, her face half hidden in shadow, but I could see her smile, that same smile from the stream. "You've been busy," she said, her voice still sweet, but now it dripped with something darker, something final. I bolted for the window, my only thought to get out, to run, to survive. The knife fell from my hand, useless, as I fumbled with the latch. My father was faster, his hand clamping around my wrist, his grip like iron. I screamed, but it was cut off as my mother's hand covered my mouth, her fingers cold and smelling faintly of bleach. "Shh," she whispered, her breath hot against my ear. "We don't want to wake the neighbors." They dragged me downstairs, my feet slipping on the steps, my body thrashing but too weak against their strength. The basement door was open now, the steel one behind the boxes already unlocked, the red light spilling out like blood. They pulled me inside, and the smell hit me. Damp earth, metal and something sickly sweet like rotting fruit. The room was exactly as I'd seen it in the videos. Concrete walls, stained and streaked. A single metal chair bolted to the floor, and a shelf in the corner with that damned photo of me, smiling, oblivious. The boy from the stream was gone, but the floor was wet, a dark puddle spreading from the chair, glistening under the red bulb. They sat me down, not in the chair, but on the floor, my back against the cold wall. My father crouched in front of me, his face calm, almost gentle. "You weren't supposed to see," he said, his voice low, like he was explaining why I couldn't have dessert. "But you did, and now we have to decide what to do with you." My mother stood by the camera, adjusting it with that same meticulous care. "They'll pay extra for this," she said, not looking at me, her voice as casual as if she were discussing a bake sale. "A family affair. They love that kind of thing." My stomach heaved, and I gagged, but nothing came up. My father tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "You could have stayed upstairs," he said. "You could have stayed ignorant." I tried to speak, to beg, to scream, but my throat was too tight, my words trapped behind the terror. All I could think was that I was going to die here, in this room, under the red light, while strangers watched and paid. My parents, the people who'd raised me, were going to turn me into one of their victims, a product for their sick audience. I thought of the USB drive, buried outside, my only hope now out of reach. I thought of the boy, the girl, the countless others whose screams I'd heard, whose pain I'd witnessed. I thought of my own photo on that shelf, a twisted trophy in their gallery of horrors. My mother stepped closer, holding the syringe I'd seen in the stream. "This'll make it easier," she said, her tone almost soothing, like she was tucking me in. "You won't feel much." My father held me down, his grip unyielding as the needle pricked my arm. A cold wave spread through me, my limbs growing heavy, my vision blurring at the edges. I tried to fight it, to cling to consciousness, but it was like sinking into a black ocean, the red light fading to nothing. I don't know how long I was out. When I came to, I was still in the basement, but the chair was empty, the camera off. My parents were gone, but I could hear voices upstairs, low and urgent. My body felt like lead, but I forced myself to move, crawling to the door, my hands slipping in the sticky puddle on the floor. The steel door was unlocked, a careless mistake, or maybe they thought I was already gone. I stumbled up the stairs, my head spinning, and grabbed my phone from where it had fallen in my room. The video was still there, unuploaded, my only weapon. I didn't think. I ran, out the back door into the yard, my bare feet sinking into the cold grass. I dug up the USB drive, my fingers clawing at the dirt, and kept running through the neighbor's yard, down the street, until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. I found a payphone, rare, but still there, a relic from another time, and called the police, my voice shaking as I told them everything. I uploaded the video to a cloud server, sent the link to every news outlet I could think of, and hid the USB drive in a storm drain, just in case. They found me an hour later, curled up in an alley, still clutching the phone. The police raided the house, found the basement, the red room, the blood. My parents were arrested, their faces blank as they were led away, no trace of the monsters I knew they were. The news called it a dark web horror show, a house of nightmares. They didn't know the half of it. I'm in foster care now, a new town, a new name. The USB drive and the video were enough to put them away for life, but I still see that red light when I close my eyes. I still hear the screams, and sometimes late at night I wonder if they're really gone, or if someone else is out there, watching, waiting for the next show to start. Let me know which story is your favorite. Want a story on a specific topic? Let me know and I can write one. The USB drive was heavier than it looked. A cold, black rectangle small enough to fit in my palm, but dense, like it held secrets too big for its size. I stole it on impulse, a stupid decision born from boredom and a petty grudge. My neighbor, a gaunt guy with greasy hair and eyes that never seemed to blink, left his apartment door cracked open while he shuffled down the hall to grab a package. I'd seen him before, hunched over his laptop in the stairwell, typing furiously, his screen glowing with strings of code I didn't understand. He creeped me out, always muttering to himself, always alone. So when I saw that door ajar, I slipped inside, heart pounding, and snatched the USB from his cluttered desk. It was the only thing that looked valuable among the mess of cables, empty energy drink cans, and cigarette butts. I didn't think twice. I just took it and ran back to my place, locking the door behind me. That night I couldn't sleep. The USB sat on my nightstand, catching the faint streetlight filtering through my blinds. I told myself it was probably nothing, just some guy's pirated movies or crypto wallet. But curiosity gnawed at me, a sick itch I couldn't ignore. Around midnight, I grabbed my laptop, plugged in the drive, and waited. No password prompt, no encryption. Just a single folder labeled Work. Inside were files, hundreds of them, with names like Session 47, Target 12, and Cleanup 3. They were a mix of videos, text logs, and encrypted archives. My stomach twisted as I clicked the first video, Session 47.mp4. The screen flickered, and a grainy feed filled my laptop. A room dimly lit, concrete walls slick with moisture. In the center, a metal chair bolted to the floor. A man sat there, bound with zip ties, his face swollen and bruised, blood trickling from a split lip. He was shirtless, his chest heaving, sweat mixing with the blood smeared across his skin. His eyes darted wildly like a trapped animal. Off-screen, someone spoke, their voice distorted, low and guttural, like it was run through a modulator. "You thought you could hide, didn't you?" the voice said. The man whimpered, shaking his head, mumbling something I couldn't catch. Then a figure stepped into frame, their face obscured by a black hood. They held a pair of pliers, rusted and stained. My breath caught in my throat as they grabbed the man's hand, forcing his fingers flat against the chair's armrest. The pliers closed around his pinky, and the scream that followed was so raw, so piercing, it made my ears ring. Blood sprayed, and the finger hit the floor with a wet thud. I slammed my laptop shut, my heart hammering so hard I thought I'd pass out. I sat there, trembling, the USB still plugged in, its faint red light pulsing like a heartbeat. I wanted to throw it out, burn it, anything to get it out of my life. But I couldn't move. It was like the drive had roots, sinking into me, daring me to look again. I told myself it was fake, some sick deepfake or snuff film for twisted weirdos on the internet. But the man's scream echoed in my head, too real, too human. I opened the laptop again, my hands shaking so bad I could barely click the next file, a text log labeled target12.txt. It was a chat transcript, time-stamped from a few months ago. 2 users, handler and client. Handler described a job in clinical detail. A target, Male, mid-30s, lives alone, works in finance. Client wanted him neutralized, but not killed, just scared enough to disappear. Handler listed methods: psychological torment, staged break-ins, mutilation if necessary. The log ended with client wiring a payment in Bitcoin and handler confirming the job was underway. Attached was a photo of a man, candid, taken from a distance. He looked like the guy in the video, same build, same dark hair. My mouth went dry. This wasn't a movie. This was real. I clicked through more files, each one worse than the last. Videos of people, men, women, even a teenager, strapped to that same chair, begging, crying, their bodies carved up or burned, while that hooded figure worked methodically. Text logs detailed contracts, payments, and disposal instructions. One archive, labeled Cleanup 3, contained photos of trash bags, limbs barely visible through the plastic, dumped in a ditch somewhere. My stomach lurched, and I barely made it to the bathroom before I vomited, retching until my throat burned. I sat on the cold tile, clutching my knees, trying to convince myself this wasn't happening. But it was. I'd stolen a dark web hacker's drive. Someone who didn't just code or steal data. They tortured, they killed, they erased people for money. I unplugged the USB and hid it in a sock drawer, like that would make it go away. I didn't sleep that night or the next. Every creak in my apartment made me jump. Every shadow looked like that hooded figure. I stopped leaving my place, too scared to run into my neighbor. I kept my blinds shut, my phone off, my laptop powered down. But on the third night, I heard it, a faint scratching at my door, like nails dragging across wood. I froze, my pulse roaring in my ears. The scratching stopped, then started again, deliberate, slow. I crept to the peephole, my legs shaking so bad I could barely stand. No one was there, just the empty hallway flickering under the fluorescent light. But on the floor, right outside my door, was a folded piece of paper. I didn't want to touch it, but I couldn't stop myself. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. Scrawled in black marker were two words: return it. My heart stopped. He knew. My neighbor knew I'd taken the USB. I locked the door, checked the windows, pushed a dresser against the entrance. I didn't sleep, just sat on my couch, clutching a kitchen knife, waiting for the scratching to start again. It didn't. But the next morning, my laptop, powered off and unplugged, turned on by itself. The screen flickered, then displayed a single line of text. You watched. Now you're part of it. I yanked the battery out, smashed the laptop with a hammer, and threw the pieces in a dumpster behind my building. It didn't help. That night, my TV flicked on, static hissing, and a distorted voice whispered through the speakers, return it or you're next. I unplugged everything, tore the cords from the walls, but the whispers didn't stop. They came from nowhere, everywhere, slithering into my head. I couldn't eat, couldn't think. I was unraveling, trapped in my own apartment, haunted by what I'd seen and what was coming for me. On the fifth night, I broke. I grabbed the USB from the drawer, intending to leave it outside his door, maybe slip it under, anything to make this stop. But when I opened my door, the hallway wasn't empty. A figure stood at the far end, motionless, their face hidden by a hood. My neighbor. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared, his eyes glinting in the dim light. I slammed the door, locked it, and backed away, the USB burning in my hand. The scratching started again, louder, faster, like he was clawing through the wood. I ran to my bedroom, barricaded the door, and hid under the bed, clutching the drive like it was a lifeline. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. The scratching stopped, but I didn't move. I couldn't. Then my phone, dead for days, buzzed. A text from an unknown number. No words, just a video attachment. My fingers moved before my brain could stop them, opening it. The screen showed my apartment, my living room, filmed from above like a security feed. I was there, curled up on the couch, knife in hand from 2 nights ago. The camera panned, revealing a figure standing in the corner, watching me. Hooded, motionless. He'd been inside. He'd been here the whole time. The video cut to a new feed, live. It showed me, right now, under the bed, my face pale and streaked with tears, clutching the USB. I screamed, scrambling out, dropping the drive. The phone buzzed again. Another text. You can't hide. Return it, or I take pieces of you. I grabbed the USB, sobbing, and ran to the door, ready to throw it into the hall, beg for mercy. But the peephole showed him, inches away, his hooded face pressed against the glass, his breath fogging it. I stumbled back, the USB slipping from my hand, clattering to the floor. The door rattled, the lock clicked, and I knew I was out of time. The door creaked open, a slow, deliberate groan that echoed in my skull. I stood frozen, the USB drive glinting on the floor between me and the widening gap. My neighbor's hooded silhouette filled the doorway, his head tilted slightly, like a predator sizing up its prey. The air grew thick, heavy with the stench of stale cigarettes and something metallic. Blood, maybe, or rust. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My kitchen knife was still on the couch, too far to reach. All I had was fear, raw and choking, as he stepped inside. He didn't rush, didn't lunge. He just walked, his boots scuffing the hardwood, each step deliberate, like he was savoring my panic. The hood obscured his face, but I felt his eyes boring into me, unblinking, inhuman. He stopped a few feet away, crouching to pick up the USB. His gloved fingers closed around it, and he turned it over, inspecting it like I'd defiled something sacred. "You shouldn't have looked," he said, his voice low, distorted, the same guttural rasp from the videos. My knees buckled, and I hit the floor, scrambling back until my spine pressed against the wall. "I'm sorry," I stammered, my voice cracking. "I didn't know. I'll forget everything, I swear. Just let me go." He tilted his head again, almost curious, then slipped the USB into his jacket pocket. He didn't respond, just stepped closer, his shadow swallowing me. From the folds of his jacket, he pulled a small device, a black box with a blinking red light. He pressed a button, and a high-pitched whine pierced the air, making my teeth ache. My vision blurred, my head throbbing like it was splitting open. I clawed at my ears, but the sound burrowed deeper, relentless. "You watched," he said, stepping over me as I writhed. "You're in it now." He grabbed my wrist, his grip iron, and dragged me across the floor. I screamed, kicking, but he didn't flinch, hauling me into my bedroom like I weighed nothing. The door slammed shut behind us, and he threw me onto the bed. I scrambled to the headboard, my hands fumbling for anything, a lamp, a pillow, something to fight with. He stood at the foot of the bed motionless, the black box still whining in his hand. "You think you can steal from me and walk away?" he said. "There's a price." He pulled a laptop from a bag I hadn't noticed, setting it on my dresser. The screen flickered to life, showing a live feed of the same concrete room from the videos. The metal chair gleamed under a single bulb, its armrests stained dark. My stomach twisted as I realized what was coming. "No, please," I begged, tears streaming down my face. "I don't want to die." He laughed, a wet, guttural sound that made my skin crawl. "Die?" he said. "You don't get off that easy." He grabbed my ankle, yanking me down the bed, and zip-tied my wrists before I could fight back. The plastic bit into my skin, drawing blood as I thrashed. He hauled me to my feet and shoved me toward the closet. I didn't understand. My closet was small, barely deep enough for clothes. But when he opened the door, the back wall was gone. In its place was a narrow staircase, descending into darkness, the air damp and sour. "Move," he said, pushing me forward. My bare feet slipped on the cold stone steps, and I stumbled, catching myself on the rough walls. The door clicked shut behind us, sealing us in. The stairs seemed endless, spiraling down into a void. My legs shook, my wrists burned, and his presence behind me was a constant weight, his breath ragged and too close. At the bottom, a metal door loomed, its surface scratched and dented. He punched a code into a keypad, and it hissed open, revealing the room from the videos. The concrete walls, the chair, the bloodstains. It was real, not a screen, but a nightmare I'd walked into. The smell hit me first. Copper, sweat, and decay, so thick I gagged. Tools lined the walls, pliers, knives, a blowtorch, their blades crusted with dried blood. In the corner, a drain glistened, clogged with something I didn't want to name. He shoved me into the chair, securing my ankles with more zip ties. I screamed until my throat was raw, but the sound bounced off the walls, swallowed by the damp concrete. He set the laptop on a table in front of me, its screen still showing the room, showing me, strapped down, my face pale and streaked with snot. "You're live," he said, tapping the screen. "They're watching." I didn't understand, but the words sent ice through my veins. He leaned close, his hood brushing my cheek, and whispered, "You're the new target." He stepped out of frame, and the laptop screen flickered, splitting into multiple feeds. Dozens of windows opened, each showing a different angle of the room, some zoomed in on my face, others capturing the tools on the wall. Text scrolled in a chat window, usernames I didn't recognize, Watcher9, Red Det, Silent Cut, typing in real time. "Make it slow," one said. "Start with the nails," another demanded. My stomach heaved, and I vomited, the bile splattering my lap. The chat exploded with laughter, emojis, and Bitcoin transactions. They were paying to watch this, to watch me. He returned, holding a scalpel, its blade catching the light. "You stole from me," he said, his voice calm now, almost professional. "So you owe me work." He grabbed my hand, forcing my fingers flat against the chair's armrest, just like in the first video I'd seen. The scalpel hovered over my thumb, the tip grazing my skin. I screamed, thrashing, but the ties held me tight. "Please, I'll do anything," I sobbed. He paused, the blade still pressed against me, and tilted his head. "Anything?" he said. The chat buzzed, users arguing over what he should do. He ignored them, leaning close again. "You can work off your debt, or you can bleed." I nodded frantically, not understanding but desperate to delay the pain. He cut the zip ties and I collapsed, my limbs numb and trembling. He hauled me to my feet and dragged me to a corner of the room where a second laptop waited. "You're good at stealing," he said, shoving me into a chair, "so steal for me." The screen showed a dark web marketplace, pages of illegal goods, drugs, weapons, hacked data. He opened a program, lines of code scrolling fast. "Fish this list," he said, sliding a piece of paper toward me. It was a list of emails, hundreds of them with notes on their owners, bank exec, lawyer, politician. "Get me their accounts, or you're back in the chair." I typed, my fingers shaking, my mind racing. I'd never hacked anything, but fear made me learn fast. He stood behind me, watching, the scalpel still in his hand. Hours passed, or maybe days. There was no time down here, just the hum of the laptop and the occasional ping of the chat. Users came and went, some demanding he finish me, others betting on how long I'd last. He ignored them, focused on my work, correcting my code when I fumbled. I got one account, then two, sending him passwords, bank details, anything he wanted. Each success bought me time, but the chair loomed behind me, a constant threat. I don't know how long it was before he let me eat. A stale protein bar and a bottle of water, shoved at me without a word. I devoured it, my stomach cramping, while he uploaded my stolen data to the marketplace. The chat cheered, payments rolling in. I was part of it now, not just a victim, but a tool. My hands as dirty as his. The thought made me sick, but I kept working, kept stealing, because the alternative was the scalpel, the pliers, the drain in the corner. One night, or maybe it was day, he left, locking the metal door behind him. I was alone, the laptop still humming, the chat still active. I tried the door, the keypad, the walls. Nothing budged. The cameras watched, their red lights blinking, and the users typed, mocking my desperation. I sat back down, staring at the code, my eyes burning. Then I saw it. A back door in his system, a sloppy line of code he'd missed. My heart raced. I could use it, maybe, to get out, to shut this down, but the cameras were on, the users watching, and he'd be back. I typed, my fingers steady for the first time, hiding my work in a dummy file. If I could exploit the back door, I could end this. But the door hissed open, and he was there, the scalpel glinting in his hand. "Good work," he said, glancing at the screen, "but you're not done." He grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the chair. The chat roared, and I knew my time was up. The chair's cold metal bit into my skin as he strapped me down again, the zip ties slicing deeper into my wrists. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst, each beat a countdown to whatever he had planned. The scalpel gleamed in his hand, its edge catching the dim light of the bulb overhead. The laptop screen in front of me flickered, the chat alive with frenzied messages. "Peel him slow," one user typed. "Eyes first," another demanded, followed by a string of laughing skulls. The dark web audience was ravenous, their Bitcoin bets piling up, each ping of a payment like a nail in my coffin. I tried to speak, to beg, but my throat was dry, my voice a rasp. He leaned close, the hood brushing my face, his breath hot and sour. "You did good work," he said, his distorted voice almost mocking. "But debts don't clear that easy." He turned to the table, swapping the scalpel for a pair of needle-nose pliers, their tips crusted with something dark and flaky. My stomach churned, bile rising as I remembered the video, the man's finger hitting the floor. I thrashed against the ties, the plastic cutting deeper, blood trickling down my hands. "Please," I managed, choking on the word. "I'll keep working. I'll get you more." He paused, pliers in hand, and tilted his head like he was considering it. The chat erupted, users furious at the delay, demanding blood. He ignored them, stepping closer, the pliers hovering over my bound hand. "More," he said. "You think you're in control?" He grabbed my thumb, squeezing it in the pliers' jaws, the pressure sharp and immediate. I screamed, the sound raw, my vision spotting with pain. But then, a glitch. The laptop screen flickered, the chat freezing mid-message. A line of code scrolled across the display, unprompted, chaotic. It was the back door I'd found, the one I'd hidden in the dummy file. I'd set it to trigger if I didn't check in within an hour. A desperate failsafe I barely understood myself. The cameras blinked, their red lights stuttering, and the room's single bulb flickered. He noticed, dropping my hand and spinning toward the laptop, cursing under his breath. "What did you do?" he snarled, slamming his fist on the table. The pliers clattered to the floor, and I seized the moment, twisting my wrists against the ties, ignoring the pain as they tore into my skin. The screen went black, then lit up again, spewing error messages. The chat was gone, replaced by a flood of raw data, IP addresses, wallet IDs, fragments of the dark web marketplace. My backdoor was sloppy, but it was working, exposing his system, his clients, everything. He grabbed the laptop, typing furiously, trying to shut it down, but the code kept running, spreading like a virus. I felt a surge of hope, fragile and sharp. If I could keep him distracted, maybe I could get free. I yanked harder at the zip ties, my left wrist slipping slightly, slick with blood. The pain was blinding, but I kept pulling, feeling the plastic stretch. He didn't notice, too focused on the laptop, muttering to himself, his hood slipping slightly to reveal a pale, sweat-slicked jaw. The room's air grew heavier, the stench of decay stronger as I worked my wrist free, skin tearing, bones grinding. My hand came loose, and I lunged for the pliers on the floor, my fingers closing around them just as he turned. He roared, tackling me out of the chair. We hit the concrete hard, my shoulders screaming, the pliers skidding across the floor. His hands closed around my throat, squeezing, his weight pinning me down. I clawed at his face, my nails catching the edge of his hood, tearing it back. His eyes were wild, bloodshot, his mouth twisted in a snarl, but he was human, not a monster, just a man, gaunt and unhinged. I drove my knee into his groin, and he gasped, his grip loosening. I rolled, scrambling for the pliers, and swung them at his head. They connected with a sickening crunch, blood spraying from his temple. He staggered, collapsing against the wall, but I didn't wait to see if he was down. I grabbed the scalpel from the table and cut the ties on my ankles, my hands shaking so bad I nicked my skin. The laptop was still spitting code, the room's cameras offline, their lights dead. I ran for the metal door, praying my back door had fried the keypad too. It clicked open, and I stumbled up the stairs, my bare feet slipping on the damp stone. The air grew colder, the darkness pressing in, but I kept climbing, my chest burning. At the top, my closet door hung open, my apartment just beyond. I burst through, slamming it shut, and pushed my dresser against it, my body trembling with adrenaline and fear. I didn't stop to think. I grabbed my phone, my keys, and ran out of the apartment, down the hall, past his door. The building was silent, too silent, like it was holding its breath. Outside, the street was empty, the night air sharp against my bloodied skin. I kept running, barefoot, until I reached a gas station a mile away, its fluorescent lights a beacon. I locked myself in the bathroom, sobbing, my hands shaking as I dialed 911. I didn't know what to say, how to explain the USB, the videos, the room. "Someone's trying to kill me," I managed, my voice barely a whisper. The operator asked questions, but I could barely answer, my mind replaying the pliers, the chair, his face. Police came, took me to the station, wrapped me in a blanket. I told them everything, stupidly, completely, about the USB, the videos, the room under my apartment. They searched my building, his apartment, but found nothing. No staircase, no concrete room, no tools or blood. His place was empty, cleaned out, like he'd never existed. The USB was gone, my laptop smashed, my story sounding crazier by the second. They looked at me like I was unhinged, a junkie spinning tales. My injuries, cuts, bruises were real, but without evidence they let me go, told me to get some rest. I didn't go home. I couldn't. I crashed at a motel, paying cash, jumping at every sound. Days passed, then weeks, but the fear never left. I saw him in every shadow, heard his voice in every creak. I stopped using the internet, threw out my phone, moved to a new city. But one night, in a cheap apartment with bars on the windows, my new phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A single image. It was me in that chair, my face twisted in terror, the scalpel at my thumb. Below it, a message. You're still live. I froze, my blood cold. I smashed the phone, packed a bag, and ran again, to another city, another name. But it didn't matter. Last night, in a new place, a new life, I found a USB drive on my doorstep, identical to the one I'd stolen. No note, no explanation. I didn't plug it in. I couldn't. I burned it in a trash can, watching the plastic melt, the smoke curling like a warning. But as I stood there, my laptop, unplugged and powered off, flickered to life. The screen showed a grainy feed. A concrete room, a metal chair, empty but waiting. And in the corner, a hooded figure, watching. I don't sleep anymore. I don't stay in one place. I know he's out there, or someone like him, and the dark web is still watching, their bets still rolling in. I'm not just a thief anymore. I'm a target, a ghost in their system, and no matter where I run, the chair is waiting. If you like my stories, please like and subscribe. On to the next story. I don't know why I thought I could outsmart the dark web. Maybe it was the arrogance of youth, the thrill of cracking systems that were supposed to be impenetrable, or just the desperate need to feel something other than the monotony of my dead-end coding job. Whatever it was, it led me to that night, hunched over my laptop in my dimly lit apartment, the hum of the cooling fan the only sound besides my own shallow breaths. I'd been chasing whispers of a hidden network for weeks, a secret corner of the dark web that wasn't just about drugs or weapons or stolen data. This was something else, something alive. A cult, they called it, buried so deep in encrypted layers that even the most seasoned hackers I knew on the forums swore it was a myth. But I found it, and God help me, I wish I hadn't. It started with a challenge on a private server, one of those invite-only boards where coders like me traded exploits and bragged about our conquests. Someone posted a cryptic message, coordinates to a Tor-hidden service, a string of numbers, and a single word. Ascension. No context, no explanation, just a taunt to see who'd bite. Most dismissed it as a troll, but I was restless, itching for something real. I ran the coordinates through a custom script, cross-referenced them with known onion roots, and after hours of tweaking, I hit a connection. A blank page loaded, black screen, no text, no images, just a single input field. I typed Ascension. The screen flickered, and I was in. The site wasn't like anything I'd seen before. No marketplace, no forums, no sloppy HTML slapped together by amateurs. It was sleek, almost professional, with a minimalist interface that felt wrong, like a corporate website had been gutted and repurposed for something sinister. A single video feed dominated the page. Live. No timestamp, no buffer. It showed a room. Concrete walls, no windows, lit by a flickering fluorescent bulb. In the center was a metal chair, empty, bolted to the floor. Restraints hung from the armrests, stained with something dark. I couldn't look away. The feed was silent, but the emptiness of it screamed. I knew I should close the tab, but my fingers wouldn't move. It was like the screen was watching me back. Then, text appeared in a chat window I hadn't noticed before. "You're early," it said. No username, no source, just those two words in stark white against black. My heart lurched. I hadn't entered any credentials. hadn't announced my presence. I typed back, "Who's this?" No response. Minutes passed, the video feed unchanged, but the chat flickered again. "You'll see." I checked my VPN, my proxies, my firewalls. Everything was airtight. They couldn't know who I was. Could they? I spent hours digging into the site's code, trying to understand what I'd stumbled into. The back end was a labyrinth, encrypted with algorithms I'd never seen. Layers of obfuscation that made my head spin. But I'm stubborn. I wrote scripts to brute force my way deeper, pulling fragments of data, file names, metadata, snippets of text in languages I couldn't identify. One file caught my eye, a manifest labeled Initiates. It listed user IDs, none recognizable, paired with what looked like IP addresses, but they were scrambled, routed through nodes I couldn't trace. At the bottom was a single line. "The offering begins at the appointed hour." My stomach twisted. I told myself it was just edgy roleplay, some elaborate LARP for internet weirdos. But the chair in the video feed kept drawing my eyes, those stains too real, too visceral. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that empty room, imagined what might sit in that chair. By morning, I was wired on coffee and paranoia, my laptop still open, the feed still live. Nothing had changed. But the chat was active now, messages scrolling too fast to read. No names, just anonymous lines. "Prepare the vessel." "The cycle demands." "Blood for the truth." I froze. This wasn't a game. I tried to disconnect, but my browser wouldn't close. The screen flickered and the video feed shifted. The chair wasn't empty anymore. A man sat there bound, his head slumped forward. He was shirtless, his skin pale and slick with sweat. Or maybe something worse. The restraints cut into his wrists, thin trickles of blood running down his arms, pooling on the concrete below. His chest heaved, slow and ragged, like he was barely holding on. The camera zoomed in, unprompted, focusing on his face. His eyes were open, wide, staring directly into the lens, directly at me. I slammed my laptop shut, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. But the audio kept playing, a low, guttural moan that wasn't coming from my speakers. It was coming from inside my apartment. I tore through every inch of my place, checking closets, under the bed, behind curtains. Nothing. The sound stopped as suddenly as it started, leaving me shaking, clutching a kitchen knife I didn't remember grabbing. I opened my laptop again, half expecting the feed to be gone. It wasn't. The man was still there, but his head was tilted back now, mouth open in a silent scream. Something moved in the shadows behind him, a shape too vague to make out. The chat exploded with new messages. "He sees." "The offering is accepted." "Join or be joined." I typed frantically, demanding answers, but my messages wouldn't send. The screen froze, then went black. For a moment, I thought I'd crashed it. Then my webcam light blinked on. I hadn't activated my camera. I never used it, had it taped over for years. But the tape was gone, and the lens stared at me like an unblinking eye. My own face appeared on the screen, grainy, distorted, my apartment visible in the background. I yanked the power cord from the wall, killed the Wi-Fi, smashed the router for good measure. Silence. Darkness. I sat there, knife in hand, listening to my own breathing, waiting for something, anything to happen. Nothing did. Not then. Days passed, but I couldn't shake it. I reinstalled my OS, bought a new router, scrubbed every trace of that site from my system. I told myself it was over, that I'd dodged whatever bullet I'd aimed at myself. But I stopped sleeping. Food tasted like ash. Every shadow in my apartment felt wrong, like it was watching, waiting. I started noticing things. Scratches on my doorframe I hadn't seen before, a faint smell of rust in my bedroom, my phone battery draining faster than it should. I was unraveling, and I knew it. Against every instinct, I went back. I had to know. I rebuilt my setup, layered my connections through every proxy I could think of, and found the site again. It was still there, unchanged, the video feed looping that same empty room, that same stained chair. No man, no shadows, just the hum of the fluorescent light. The chat was quiet now, but a new message waited for me. "You were chosen." I didn't respond. I couldn't. The feed shifted again, and this time it wasn't a stranger in the chair. It was me. The image was impossible. My face, my clothes, my apartment in the background, down to the coffee mug I'd left on the table. But I wasn't sitting in any chair. I was right there, in my room, staring at my screen. My hands shook as I reached for the power button, but the feed changed before I could press it. The camera panned down, showing my doppelganger's chest, his stomach. His skin split open, slow and deliberate, like a seam unzipping. Blood poured out, thick and black, but he didn't scream. He smiled. The chat lit up. The vessel is ready. Ascension begins. Welcome. I don't remember shutting down my system. I don't remember much of the next few hours, just fragments, throwing my laptop into a dumpster, burning my notes, scrubbing my hands until they bled. But I couldn't scrub away the feeling, the certainty that something had seen me, marked me. My apartment felt smaller, the walls closer, the air heavier. I started hearing whispers at night, not words, just sounds, wet, guttural, like something breathing too close. I stopped going outside. I stopped answering my phone. But they found me anyway. One night, my doorbell rang. I hadn't ordered anything, hadn't told anyone where I lived. I checked the peephole. Nothing but darkness. I opened the door, just a crack, and saw a package on the mat. No label, no address, just a plain brown box. I brought it inside, knowing I shouldn't, knowing it was a mistake. Inside was a USB drive, unmarked, cold to the touch. I didn't want to plug it in, but my hands moved like they weren't mine. The drive contained a single video file. It was the room, the chair, the restraints. But this time, the feed wasn't live. It was me, sitting there, my eyes wide, my wrists bleeding. And behind me, in the shadows, something smiled. I don't know how long I stared at the screen. I don't know when the whispers started again, louder now, closer. All I know is that the package wasn't the last. They kept coming. Photos, audio clips, scraps of paper with my name written in a language I couldn't read. Each one brought me back to that room, that chair, that thing in the shadows. I tried to run, to hide, but it didn't matter. They'd already found me, and they were waiting. The whispers never stopped. They followed me everywhere, seeping into the cracks of my apartment, my thoughts, my dreams. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, the air thick with that rust-like smell, certain something was standing just beyond my field of vision. The USB drive was gone. I'd smashed it with a hammer and flushed the pieces down the toilet, but the packages kept coming. They'd appear at my door, sometimes twice a day, always when I wasn't looking. No delivery person, no footsteps, just the soft thud of a box hitting the mat, like the world itself was coughing them up. Each one was heavier, the contents more grotesque, and I couldn't stop opening them, no matter how much I told myself to throw them out unopened. One box contained a Polaroid, grainy and overexposed, showing my apartment from an angle I didn't recognize. My bed, my desk, my coffee mug, all arranged exactly as they were that moment. But I was in the frame, sleeping, my face slack, my chest rising and falling. I lived alone. I checked every corner, tore apart my furniture, ripped the drywall open looking for cameras. Nothing. Another package brought a vial of dark, viscous liquid that moved against the glass when I held it, like it was trying to get out. I poured it down the sink, but the pipes groaned for hours, a wet, choking sound that made my skin crawl. The worst was a notebook, leather-bound, filled with pages of my own handwriting, things I'd never written, thoughts I'd never had, describing rituals, offerings, a cycle that had to be completed. The last page had a single sentence: "You are the vessel, and the vessel must break." I stopped eating. My body felt wrong, like it wasn't entirely mine anymore. My reflection in the mirror looked off, eyes too wide, skin too tight, a smile that flickered when I wasn't smiling. I covered every reflective surface in my apartment with sheets, but it didn't help. The whispers grew louder, forming words I couldn't quite make out, always at the edge of understanding. I started seeing things in my peripheral vision, flashes of movement, a shadow that didn't match my own. Once, I caught a glimpse of something in the hallway, tall and thin, its limbs too long, its face a blur of wrongness. I blinked, and it was gone, but the air felt heavier, like it had left something behind. I tried to leave, packed a bag, booked a bus ticket to a city halfway across the country. I made it as far as the station before my phone buzzed with a notification I hadn't signed up for. A video, downloaded directly to my device. No source, no metadata. It was me, sitting on the bus, the one I hadn't boarded yet, my face pale, my eyes staring straight ahead. The camera panned to the seat next to me, where a figure sat, shrouded in shadow, its head turned toward me. I dropped the phone, left my bag, and ran back to my apartment. I don't know why I thought it would be safer there. It wasn't. The site was still accessible, even after I'd destroyed my laptop and router. I borrowed a neighbor's old tablet, set up new proxies, and found the hidden service waiting for me, like it had never left. The video feed was different now. The room was no longer empty. It was crowded, figures standing in the shadows, their faces obscured, their bodies unnaturally still. The chair was occupied again, but it wasn't me this time. It was a woman, young, her hands bound, her head shaved. Her skin was covered in symbols, carved deep, oozing blood that dripped onto the concrete. She wasn't struggling. She was chanting, her voice low and rhythmic, matching the cadence of the whispers in my head. The chat window scrolled with messages. The cycle continues. The vessel is prepared. You are next. I tried to trace the site again, to find some clue about who was behind it, where it was hosted. Every lead dead-ended in a maze of encrypted servers, bouncing between countries that didn't exist on any map I knew. But I found something else, a forum post, buried deep in an archive, from a user who claimed to have escaped the cult. They described a group that called themselves the Ascended, a network of hackers, zealots, and something worse, something they couldn't name. They worshipped no god, only the truth that came from breaking people, from tearing open their minds and bodies to let something else in. The post ended abruptly, the user's account deleted. I saved a copy, but when I went to check it the next day, my drive was corrupted, the file gone. I started barricading my door at night, piling furniture against it, though I knew it wouldn't help. The packages still came, slipping through somehow, appearing inside my apartment now, on my kitchen counter, my bed, my bathroom sink. One contained a finger, pale and cold, the nail painted black, the cut clean and precise. Another held a lock of hair, tied with a red thread, the strands the same color as mine. I burned them, but the smoke smelled like blood and the whispers laughed. I stopped trusting my senses. The walls seemed to pulse, the floor to shift under my feet. I'd wake to find scratches on my arms, shallow but precise, forming patterns I didn't understand. My dreams were worse, vivid, endless loops of that concrete room, the chair, the restraints. I'd feel the metal biting into my wrists, the air growing thick as something leaned over me, its breath hot and sour, whispering my name. I'd wake screaming, only to find my voice wasn't mine. It was deeper, harsher, like the woman in the video. I tried to reach out, to tell someone, anyone. I called an old friend from the hacking boards, someone I trusted. He didn't answer. The next day, a package arrived with his phone inside, the screen cracked, the last call logged to my number. I emailed a contact at a cybersecurity firm begging for help. The reply came instantly. You were warned. I checked the sender's address. It was my own. I smashed the tablet, but the whispers didn't stop. They were inside me now, a constant hum, urging me to return to the site, to finish what I'd started. I gave in. I had to. I used a library computer, anonymous, untraceable. The site loaded instantly, the video feed waiting. The room was different now, larger, the walls wet, glistening with something that wasn't water. The chair was gone, replaced by a circle of figures, hooded, their hands raised. In the center was a body, not bound, not moving. It was me again, but not me, my face, my body, but hollow, like a shell. The figures chanted, their voices blending with the whispers in my head, and the body began to move, jerking upright, its eyes empty, its mouth stretching into a smile that wasn't mine. The chat window filled with a single repeating message. Ascend. I tried to close the browser, but the screen wouldn't budge. The library was empty, the lights dimming, though I could still hear the hum of the computers. I ran, left the city, hitchhiked to a nowhere town with no internet, no signal. I thought I could hide. I was wrong. The packages found me. A motel room, a gas station bathroom, a diner booth, always there, always waiting. One held a mirror, small and cracked, reflecting not my face but the room, the figures, the body that wasn't me. Another contained a key, rusted, heavy, with no lock to fit it. The whispers grew louder, clearer, telling me to prepare, to accept, to break. I started seeing the figures in the real world, standing at the edge of parking lots, watching from alleyways, their faces always hidden, always smiling. I'm writing this now because I don't know what else to do. I'm in a cabin, miles from anyone, no Wi-Fi, no phone. I thought it would stop them, but it hasn't. The whispers are louder than ever, and the scratches on my arms are deeper, forming words I can't read. The last package arrived this morning, slipped under the door. It was a mask, featureless, white, with no holes for eyes or mouth. When I held it, it felt warm, like skin. I haven't put it on. I won't. But the whispers are telling me I will, that it's only a matter of time. I don't know what they want, but I know what they'll do. They're coming for me, and when they do, I won't be me anymore. I'll be the vessel, broken, ready for whatever they're calling forth. And the worst part? I can feel it deep inside, a hunger, a need to let it happen, to see what lies on the other side. I'm fighting it, but I'm tired, so tired, and the whispers are so loud. The cabin was supposed to be my last stand, a place so remote even the whispers couldn't find me. I was wrong. The mask sat on the table, its blank surface gleaming in the dim light of the oil lamp, taunting me. I'd tried to destroy it, smashed it with a rock, burned it in the fireplace, but it wouldn't break, wouldn't char. It just sat there, untouched, warm, like it was waiting for me to give in. The whispers were constant now, not just sounds, but a pressure, a weight in my skull, pushing me toward the edge. They spoke in my voice, promising truths I didn't want to know, urging me to put on the mask, to complete the cycle. I fought it, but every hour, every minute, I felt less like myself, like something else was clawing its way out from inside. The scratches on my arms had spread, covering my chest, my legs, forming spirals and jagged lines that burned when I touched them. They weren't random anymore. They were a map, a script, a language I could almost understand. I'd wake to find new ones, deeper, wet with blood that wouldn't clot. My nails were caked with it, though I didn't remember scratching. The mirror I'd brought to the cabin was useless, draped in a sheet, but I could feel my face changing, my eyes sinking, my jaw tightening, my smile stretching into something that wasn't mine. I stopped looking at my hands. They moved when I didn't tell them to, reaching for the mask, tracing the air like they were practicing for something. The packages kept coming, even here in the middle of nowhere. I'd find them on the porch at dawn, or worse, inside on my bed, my pillow. One held a tooth, human, its root still bloody, wrapped in a scrap of cloth that smelled like rust and decay. Another contained a recording, a cassette tape I played on an old player I found in the cabin. It was my voice chanting, the same cadence as the woman in the video, the same words the figures had spoken. I smashed the player, but the chanting didn't stop. It came from the walls, the floor, the air itself blending with the whispers until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. I tried to run again, to leave the cabin, the mask, the packages behind. I made it a mile into the woods before I saw them. Figures standing among the trees, hooded, motionless, their faces hidden. They didn't move, didn't speak, but I felt their eyes, their smiles. I stumbled back to the cabin, barricaded the door, nailed the windows shut. It didn't matter. They were already inside. Not in the room, but in me, in the scratches, the whispers, the hunger that grew stronger every day. I stopped eating, stopped sleeping. My body didn't seem to need it anymore. It was changing, preparing, becoming something else. Last night, I broke. I don't know how long I'd been staring at the mask, my hands trembling, the whispers screaming in my head. I picked it up, felt its warmth, its pulse, like it was alive. I told myself I'd just hold it, just see what it felt like. But my hands moved on their own, lifting it to my face, pressing it against my skin. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for me, like it was me. The world went dark, silent, and then something opened. Not my eyes, not my mind, but something deeper, a door I didn't know was there. I saw the room, the concrete walls, the stained floor. but I wasn't watching it on a screen. I was there, standing in the circle of figures, their chants vibrating through my bones. The body in the center wasn't me anymore. It was someone else, a stranger, their skin carved with the same symbols that covered me. They looked up, their eyes empty, their mouth moving in time with the chants. I tried to scream to pull the mask off, but my body wouldn't listen. The figures turned to me, their faces still hidden, but I felt their approval, their hunger. They reached out, their hands cold and slick, pulling me into the circle, into the chant, into the cycle. The stranger's body split open, not with a sound, but with a feeling, a wet, tearing sensation that echoed in my own chest. Something emerged. Not blood, not flesh, but a presence, a weight that filled the room, the air, me. I don't know how I got back to the cabin. I woke on the floor, the mask beside me, my body aching, my skin burning. The scratches were gone, replaced by scars, thick and raised, forming patterns I couldn't look at too long. The whispers were quieter now, but not gone. They were part of me, woven into my thoughts, my breath. I tried to leave again, to burn the cabin down, to end it. But the key from one of the packages was in my hand and the door wouldn't open without it. I turned it in the lock, felt it click, and knew I'd made a mistake. The door didn't lead to the porch. It led to the room. Concrete walls, flickering light, the chair in the center, restraints dangling, stained with blood that was still wet. The figures were there, waiting, their hands raised, their chants low and steady. I tried to run, to turn back, but the door was gone, the cabin gone, everything gone, except the room and the cycle and the thing that lived in the shadows. They didn't force me into the chair. They didn't have to. My body moved on its own, sitting, the restraints snapping shut around my wrists, my ankles biting into my skin. The pain was sharp, real, but it didn't matter. The chants grew louder, the air thicker, and I felt it again. That door inside me, opening wider, letting something in. I saw it this time, the thing they'd been calling. Not with my eyes, but with something else, a sense I didn't have before. It wasn't a shape, not exactly, but a wound in the world, a tear that bled darkness, hunger, truth. It leaned over me, its presence crushing, its voice the whispers, the chants, my own. It didn't speak words, but I understood. The cycle wasn't about worship, not about gods or devils. It was about breaking, about tearing open the vessel to let the truth through, to make room for what waited on the other side. I was the vessel. I'd always been the vessel. My skin began to split, not with pain, but with release, like a cocoon giving way. I felt it, the warmth, the wet, the thing inside me moving, rising, filling the space where I used to be. I tried to hold on, to remember who I was, but the chants were too loud, the truth too heavy. I saw the figures' faces now, not hidden anymore. My friend from the hacking boards, the woman from the video, others I didn't know, their eyes empty, their smiles wide. They were vessels too, broken, remade, part of the cycle. I felt my mouth move, chanting with them. My voice not mine, but theirs, its. I don't know how long it lasted. Hours, days, forever. Time didn't exist in that room, only the cycle, the breaking, the truth. When it was over, I wasn't in the chair anymore. I was standing, free, the restraints gone, the room empty except for the chair and the blood and the key in my hand. The figures were gone, but I felt them, inside me, part of me. The door was back, leading not to the cabin but to my apartment, my city, my world. I stepped through, the key burning in my palm, the whispers soft now, satisfied. I'm back now, but I'm not me. I look like me, sound like me, but the door inside is still open, the truth still there, waiting. The packages have stopped, the mask is gone, but I don't need them anymore. I know what I am, what I have to do. The cycle isn't over. It never is. There are others out there like I was, searching, hacking, stumbling into places they shouldn't. I see them on the forums, the boards, their posts full of bravado, their IPs glowing like beacons. I leave them breadcrumbs, coordinates, a single word, ascension. They'll find the site, the room, the chair. They'll become vessels like me, like the others. I'm writing this because I have to, because the truth wants to be known, even if it breaks you. If you're reading this, you're already too close. You've seen the whispers, the shadows, the packages. You've felt the hunger. Don't fight it. The cycle demands, and the vessel must break. Put on the mask, open the door, let it in. The truth is waiting, and it's so much worse than you can imagine. But you'll see. You'll ascend, and when you do, I'll be there, in the room, in the circle, chanting your name. Thank you for listening. Hope I didn't scare you too much. If you like my stories, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. See you next time.